19. Nebuchadnezzar was full of fury, and the expression on his face changed toward Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He spoke and commanded that they heat the furnace 7 times more than it was usually heated. Unnecessary. If it's a furnace and you walk into it, are you going to survive? No. If they heat it twice as hot as it was, is it going to be worse on you? No. What about 7 times? This is another literary example that you're being told a story with a bigger meaning, because they use a number that's not even it's not a Chaldean, Babylonian reference. It's a Hebrew reference. And so for the Hebrews, 7 is as big as it gets. This is the worst possible furnace you can go into. This is as bad of a journey as we can make. 7 times more than it was usually heated. And he commanded certain mighty men of valor who were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and cast them into the burning fiery furnace. So now we got big, strong men full of valor that's going to throw these 3 boys in because they're so strong. And then these men were bound in their coats, their trousers, their turbans, and other garments, and were cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Therefore, because the king's command was urgent and the furnace exceedingly hot, the flame of the fire killed the men who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Again, the story trying to show you fire is so hot that it kills the guys throwing them in there. And they're fall over dead, which kind of tells you that what the story's trying to tell you is that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego went in with their eyes wide open. That's the whole reason for this verse, is to show you if your captors die and then you keep going into the furnace, the point of the story is they walked into their chaos on purpose because they had purpose. And they realized that some forms of chaos is exactly what you need if you're going to show out for the kingdom. There's no other way for the kingdom to be displayed the way it is. I think it's possible that some of the chaos we're going into right now, that we're in America, we need it. We need it. Because maybe we're finding out what the church is made of. And it was a chaos we needed. And it was a chaos we needed because we needed to remember why we're Christians. And it's not so we can get together in buildings. It's so that we can take a kingdom stand and love our neighbor. So that we can self-sacrifice. Maybe it's getting us back to something that a whole generation of believers has lost because of our prosperity, because of our comfort, because everything is easy, because we have so much money and so much food and so much time and so much wealth and so much comfort. Maybe the church, maybe we needed to be able to take a stand for the values that really matter to us, like sacrifice and loving our neighbor and getting rid of our irrational anger and sacrificing some pieces of our lives we could live without. And maybe we're walking into it with our eyes wide open because that's exactly what we need to do. So it kills those who throw them in, and these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down bound into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. The king Nebuchadnezzar was astonished. He rose in haste and spoke, said to his counselors, "Did we not cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire?" And they answered and said to the king, "True, O king." "Look," he answered, "I see 4 men loose, walking in the middle of the fire, and they are not hurt, and the form of the 4th is like the Son of God." And this is an anachronistic verse in our prophetic timeline, meaning it's a verse that doesn't belong, the character doesn't belong in the timeline. The Son of God, as we know him, doesn't exist in Daniel. Jesus has never been born. Israel thinks of the Son of God in different terms than we do because we're looking back on a man named Jesus. We've talked about this in our John study. Their idea of a Son of God is something entirely different. Daniel's not written in Hebrew, by the way. It's written in Chaldean. It's the only Old Testament book not written in Hebrew originally. And in the Chaldean tongue, what Nebuchadnezzar says is the form of the 4th is like the son of one of the gods. In other words, he's not thinking he sees Jesus. We mispreach this if we go, Nebuchadnezzar thinks he sees Jesus. He doesn't know who Jesus is. Don't give him powers he can't possibly have had. But he does think it looks like something beyond comprehension. He uses the only word he understands. It looks like a son of the gods. In other words, that 4th character doesn't belong there. He transcends fiery furnaces. He doesn't look like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and yet his presence appears to be what's saving them. So what can we do with this? Well, we know we have our Son of God. We know we have our Jesus. We have our Christ. It's okay for us to interpolate Him into the story for our own fiery furnace. And that is that when we walk in with our eyes wide open, why does He walk in with us? Because we belong in His kingdom. And no matter what we walk into, we walk Him into the middle of it. We walk Him into the middle of all of our chaos. Chaos we didn't bring about, and chaos we know we brought about. And chaos that we brought about and we needed, because we needed to be challenged to be sons and daughters of the kingdom. And whatever the chaos is, in the middle of it is a man who looks like the Son of God, who has the presence of what we need in the middle of our journey.